The ocean does not keep records. It swallows history, leaving whispers of civilizations that are lost to time. Among those whispers, one name resurfaces time and time again: Moo, the Lost Continent. A land so advanced, so powerful, that it supposedly shaped the very foundations of human civilization, and yet it vanished without a trace. What remains are myths, speculations, and the relentless conviction of one man who believed Moo was real. Is the legend of Moo fact or fiction? And if it really did exist, where did it go? The story of Moo begins with the 19th century British-American antiquarian Augustus Le Plongeon. He was a researcher who had spent years studying Maya ruins in Yucatans when he stumbled upon a sacred book of the Quiche Maya, known as the Popol Vuh. Le Plongeon claimed that he had found a way to translate this book and discovered something bizarre. According to him, through this book, he found out that the Mayans talked about another continent that wasn't mentioned anywhere: the lost continent of Moo. According to Le Plongeon, Moo was a vast landmass that existed even before the ancient civilizations of Egypt and Greece. He believed that Moo was the true cradle of human civilization, and when it was destroyed, its survivors fled to Central America, which is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and the western portions of Honduras and El Salvador. Here, they established the Maya civilization, which existed from 2000 BC to 1697 AD. Naturally, his theories were met with skepticism, with people laughing at his work, claiming it was nothing more than a fairy tale. But his work laid the foundation for the future explorers and writers to expand on the myth of Moo. Le Plongeon was fascinated by Moo, which led him to make controversial claims, such as his belief that Queen Moo, a supposed ancient ruler, was the prototype for the Egyptian goddess Isis. He argued that the similarities between Maya and Egyptian mythology were evidence of this connection. For example, both Egyptian and Mayan cultures used hieroglyphs consisting of pictographs or drawings representing words or concepts. Both built pyramids, and both Egyptian and Mayan cultures were polytheistic, with rulers that represented gods on Earth. His theories, though largely discredited at the time, have influenced many later interpretations of Moo and other lost continents. But it wasn't until the early 20th century that Moo truly captured the public's imagination, thanks to the writings of James Churchward. Churchward was an author and an adventurer, but he had also served as a soldier in the military. He claimed to have discovered ancient clay tablets in India that told the story of Moo. According to Churchward, these tablets were written in a long-lost language called Naacal. It revealed that Moo was a vast continent in the Pacific Ocean that was once home to an advanced civilization that flourished over 50,000 years ago. If Moo existed, its architecture would have been nothing short of astonishing. People who are still discovering about Moo have stated that grand temples, pyramid-like structures, and intricate carvings on stone buildings that were similar to those of ancient Egypt and Mesoamerica were present in the civilization of Moo. These structures were said to be built with precision and sophistication, reflecting the advanced knowledge of Moo's inhabitants. Moo's pyramids seem to be used for religious and scientific work. Other theories also exist suggesting that these pyramids were in alignment with stars or heavenly bodies, which possibly acted as huge telescopes. There were also many comparisons between the pyramids of Egypt and Mesoamerica, which point precisely to stars and solstices. James Churchward also claimed that the continent was dotted with massive stone temples, which were dedicated to the worship of the sun. These temples were covered with intricate carvings of Moo's history, religion, and science. Not only that, Churchward believed earnestly that the Moai statues on Easter Island were evidence of Moo's architectural skills, and claimed that all of the statues were complete bodies, and over time, bodies have been buried. Often referred to as a technologically advanced civilization, Moo is said to have possessed knowledge that ancient cultures would later on surpass. Churchward claims that the Naacal tablets indicate that the populace of Moo was well versed in astronomy, metallurgy, as well as agriculture. Even their system of governance was peculiar, with an enforced authority and a defined order of governance. The priest-king is said to be the apex of the said order, serving as a head in control of both and reigned over political and religious matters in Moo. This dual control gave the priest-king unparalleled authority concerning the practical and spiritual matters of the civilization. The priest-king was supported by a class of priests and scholars who preserved and advanced Moo's knowledge. Equally, these reserved peoples attended to the civilization's religious matters and scientific activities, as well as protected the case of history. Beneath them, artisans, farmers, and workers woke up and contributed to the revelation of the material wealth of God's creations. It is claimed each member of the society greatly contributed to collective well-being, which made the society in Moo achieve insane feats and have an extremely good standard of living for all people. This spirit of togetherness is mostly regarded as a supporting aspect of Moo's success. Nevertheless, these factors combined could not prevent the eventual downfall of the civilization in a cataclysm that led to its destruction. These claims of Churchward have been the subject of debate among scholars who claim that the Naacal tablets never existed or misinterpreted Churchward's translations. But to even begin with, what are these Naacal tablets in the first place? And how did Churchward even find them? While serving as a soldier in India, Churchward befriended a high-ranking temple priest who showed him a set of ancient, sunburnt clay tablets, supposedly in a long-lost Naga Maya language that only 2 other people in India could read. Convincing the priest to teach him the dead language, Churchward deciphered the tablets and learned that they originated from the place where man first appeared, Moo. He further claimed that his research was also based on a collection of 2,500 stone tablets uncovered by William Niven in Mexico. These tablets described Moo as the birthplace of humanity, which was ruled by the Naacal civilization between 12,000 to 50,000 years ago. Moo was said to have a population of 64 million people and was organized into 10 tribes under a single government and religion. Churchward portrayed Moo as a paradise of vast land, lush rivers, and grand cities, and was ruled by a leader named Ra, who was later worshipped by the Egyptians as the sun god Ra. Then, tragedy struck Moo 12,000 years ago. There was an earthquake that caused a tsunami so great that it ultimately sank Moo. However, according to Churchward, the remains of Moo's civilization still exist in places like Easter Island and Central America. For many, the absence of physical proof of the Naacal tablets' existence is enough to dismiss Churchward's claims. Yet, for believers in Moo, the tablets remain a tantalizing piece of the puzzle, a potential key to unlocking the secrets of this lost civilization. Evidence that is often cited to support the idea of Moo is the Troyana Codex, which is an ancient Mayan manuscript. French scholar Charles-Étienne Brazier de Bourbourg claimed to have found references depicting a land which was destroyed by a catastrophic event in the Codex. The precise whereabouts of Moo is still under discussion. Churchward placed Moo in the Pacific Ocean, but various other theories have emerged. Some argue that Moo was situated in the Indian Ocean, coexisting with the legendary continent Lemuria. Others argue that Moo and Atlantis were parts of a single landmass, Moo being in the Pacific and Atlantis in the Atlantic. But we'll get into those theories in a few minutes. Let's first talk about how Moo got destroyed. The calamity that flattened Moo's remains is often told as a sequence of volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, and is said to have stemmed from the bursting of gas chambers beneath the surface. This singular event is said to have led to the continent sinking into the ocean, producing a few islands that could now only be compared to the massive Easter Island and Hawaii. And here's the thing. The destruction of Moo shares quite a lot of details with other ancient flood myths, such as the Great Flood from the Bible or Hinduism's story of Manu. These similarities have created room for certain individuals to ponder if these tales hold a history of Moo's death that has simply been passed on for centuries. Is there some truth to all these stories? And is Moo its own continent? Or is it just Atlantis or Lemuria in disguise? The first theory that we come across is that Moo was a continent in the Indian Ocean, and was the same continent as Lemuria. Lemuria is another mythical lost continent that was first proposed in the 19th century by scientists seeking to explain the distribution of lemurs and other species across Africa and India. But at the same time, there is some debate about whether this theory is true or not. The first debate is about the location of the two. Moo has typically always been placed in the Pacific Ocean, while Lemuria is placed in the Indian Ocean. The second is about their origins. The talk of Moo rises from the works of Augustus Le Plongeon and James Churchward, who linked it to the ancient Maya texts. Lemuria, on the other hand, originated as a scientific theory rather than a legend before it was adopted by spiritualists. Thirdly, it talks about their cultural influence. Moo is often tied to and associated with the Mesoamerican and Pacific cultures, while Lemuria is more closely linked to the Indian and African traditions. But in the early 20th century, some theorists began to merge the two myths, suggesting that Moo and Lemuria were either the same continent or somehow related. James Churchward himself speculated that Moo's influence extended into the Indian Ocean, overlapping with Lemuria. This blending of myths created a richer, more complex narrative, but it also blurred the lines between the two legends. Some theorists have pointed out that Lemuria might have been an earlier form of Moo. Maybe the continent was originally in the Indian Ocean and then drifted into the Pacific, where it ended up sinking, and that's how the natives of Moo made their way towards the Americas. Or maybe it's the opposite. Moo was the original continent that drifted into the Indian Ocean and sunk there, causing the people to move to India, probably forming one of the oldest civilizations in history, known as Kumari Kandam. We did a video on it, and it's worth watching to see how all the pieces fit. Either way, it's something that is worth looking into. The same can be said for the second most discussed theory, that Moo was a continent in the Atlantic Ocean and is the same continent as Atlantis. The connection between Moo and Atlantis is one of the most intriguing aspects of the lost continent myth. There are a lot of similarities between the two continents. For example, both are described as having very well-versed and advanced civilizations that had advanced knowledge in subjects such as astronomy, metallurgy, and architecture. Moreover, both civilizations are said to have been destroyed by natural disasters and then sunk to the bottom of the sea. Lastly, both Atlantis and Lemuria are believed to have influenced many later cultures, with their people migrating to other parts of the world, spreading their knowledge and culture. The only difference between the two is their locations, since Moo was in the Pacific and Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, and how they were destroyed. Moo was destroyed due to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, making it sink into the ocean, while Atlantis fell out of favor with the gods, and hence was made to sink into the Atlantic Ocean. Some people even believe that it might have been the same continent, since their stories are so similar. While there's no scientific evidence to support these claims, the similarities between the two myths have fueled endless speculation and debate. Then we have the third and final theory about Moo's origin, that Moo was a continent of its own in the Pacific Ocean. Moo's status as a separate continent is based on its geographical and cultural distinctiveness. In contrast to the continents of Lemuria and Atlantis, Moo is always fixedly located in the Pacific Ocean, making it different from other lost continents. It is said that considering the immense space of the Pacific Ocean and the widely spread islands, such as the Easter Islands and Hawaii, with their ancient ruins and huge structures, imply the existence of remnants of maybe a long-lost civilization. Its geographical characteristics, including submarine mountain ranges and volcanic eruptions, support the concept of a continent sunk and lost due to natural catastrophes. Moo's legacy is said to have helped create later civilizations like the Maya, Polynesians, and Egyptians. The symbolic similarities among these cultures in architectural, mythological, and cultural practices are why we think this. For example, the Moai on Easter Island and the pyramids in Mesoamerica are a hint toward a common culture that might be explained by Moo. All these might sound far-fetched until you start to go back in time. Most of us might not know, but at one time, the Earth was one big landmass. We were not as separated from each other as we are right now. Pangaea was a supercontinent that existed during the late Paleozoic and early Mesozoic eras, encompassing all of the Earth's current continents, which then began to break apart around 200 million years ago. Pangaea formed from earlier continental units like Gondwana, Euramerica, and Siberia during the Carboniferous period, approximately 335 million years ago. This supercontinent began to break apart around 200 million years ago, at the end of the Triassic and the beginning of the Jurassic periods, eventually forming the continents and oceans we know today. What am I trying to say? It's possible that Moo isn't just a theory, but a long-forgotten fact. And maybe the reason why Lemuria, Atlantis, and Moo have similarities is because they were both together before breaking up. Come on, you have to admit that it is weird that diverse cultures all over the world share flood stories, or have almost the same story of creation, and even have similar gods or religions. And why it is weird is because these countries should have nothing to do with each other because of the vast distances between them. At least, that's what science always tells us. But every year, the same scientists are always discovering something that says otherwise. In other words, proves them wrong. So what's to say they're not wrong right now again? So we've heard the believers. But what do the skeptics have to say about the continent of Moo? Modern-day geological knowledge is fundamentally at odds with the notion that a continent could sink that quickly into the ocean. The Earth's crust is separated into enormous plates that float on the semi-fluid mantle below, according to the theory of plate tectonics, which has been widely verified since the 1970s. Over geological timescales, these plates move slowly, causing continents to drift, collide, and occasionally split apart. Nevertheless, this process takes place over hundreds of millions of years, rather than the brief period of time depicted in the Moo myth. This already creates some problems between the theories we have about Moo and science. But it doesn't stop here. Many scientists claim that continents can't sink as easily as the Moo myth makes it seem. Continents are composed of lighter rocks, known as sile, that float on the denser rocks, known as sima, of the oceanic crust. Continents stay stable and anchored in place because of this buoyancy. A continent cannot sink unless its whole landmass is moved, which is physically impossible to do without leaving any evidence. In the Pacific Ocean or anywhere else on Earth, there is no indication of such a significant displacement. Moreover, the movement of the Earth's crust through processes like subduction, seafloor spreading, and the continental drift is explained by plate tectonics. These processes do not allow the abrupt destruction of a continent. but they can alter its position and shape over millions of years. But that's not all. We also have to talk about the lack of evidence when it comes to finding proof of a sunk continent. Significant geological evidence, such as submerged continental rock formations or enormous sediment deposits, would have been left behind if Moo had truly existed. However, there are no signs of a sunken continent on the Pacific Ocean floor, which is mostly made up of basaltic oceanic crust. Frequently mentioned as remnants of Moo, islands such as Easter Island and Hawaii are volcanic in origin and unrelated to any larger landmass. Enormous constructions and ancient ruins are frequently cited by Moo proponents as proof of the lost continent. However, the existence of a lost continent is not necessary to explain the origins of these structures, such as Easter Island's Moai statues, which are consistent with the cultural accomplishments of their respective civilizations. The concept of a Pacific-wide civilization like Moo is further undermined by the lack of extensive, interconnected archaeological evidence. Now, the main proponent of the Moo myth, James Churchward, asserted that he had found ancient clay tablets in India that were written in the long-lost Naacal language. He maintained that these tablets included thorough descriptions of Moo's history, culture, and final demise. But many people are skeptical of Churchward's assertions. Many skeptics ask, where are the Naacal tablets which were found and translated by James Churchward himself? We don't know because no one ever saw it. A major point to be noted is that the Naacal tablets have never been physically discovered, and their existence has never been confirmed by other academics or archaeologists. Churchward claimed to have finished the translations over several decades, but they are entirely his own interpretations without any substantiating evidence or peer-reviewed analysis. He was basically saying, "Trust me, bro," whenever he was asked for his source. I mean, if you're so sure of it, let other people see it or review it. But because of the lack of it, many people have come to the conclusion that the Naacal tablets are a hoax due to the lack of credible evidence. This made skeptics probe him further. If he lied about this, what else did he lie about? Turns out, a lot. Churchward was not a trained archaeologist or geologist, but rather an amateur enthusiast with a flair for storytelling. His claims regarding ancient civilizations are not supported by his experience as an inventor or British Army officer. His theories frequently rely on speculative interpretations of ancient texts and symbols. For instance, academics have rejected his interpretation of the ancient Maya manuscript known as the Troyana Codex as a mistranslation. His assertions regarding Moo's impact on later societies, like the Maya and Egyptians, are not supported by hard data, architectural and symbolic parallels. Churchward's theories are firmly in the category of pseudoscience, since they lack credible sources and supporting data. Plus, it is well noted that he selectively interpreted the evidence to support his preconceived narrative, making his work frequently criticized for its reliance on confirmation bias. This is particularly true for Easter Island, a volcanic peak that was formed recently and is surrounded by deep seas. The Moai platforms are mostly found along the island's current coast, according to Alfred Mithrow, who visited the island in the 1930s. This suggests that the island's shape hasn't changed much since the platforms were built. Moreover, the alleged triumphal road that Pierre Loti asserted linked the islands to the submerged areas below is actually a naturally occurring lava flow. The claim that the Moai statues of Easter Island were evidence of Moo's existence is wrong because the statues were built by the Rapa Nui people and are consistent with Polynesian cultural practices. Similarly, his interpretation of the Troyana Codex as describing Moo's destruction has been debunked by scholars who note that the Codex is an astronomical and religious text with no mention of a lost continent. Thus, we conclude our investigation into the mystery of Moo. a tale that has captivated skeptics, dreamers, and adventurers for more than a century. So, personally, here's what I think, and feel free to disagree with me and call me out in the comments. I think it's possible Moo existed. For starters, despite how much we've explored our waters, we still haven't gone anywhere. I think we've only explored 5% of the entire world's oceans. Don't you think it's crazy to only explore 5% and come up with a resolution that certain things don't exist? You can make a better case with 70%, but just 5% is too small to make such a claim. I don't mean we should believe Churchward hook, line, and sinker, but I also don't think we should rule it out and throw it out. The history of science is filled with discoveries that were once thought to be myths, so what's to say this isn't? And it's just strange how diverse, and I mean very diverse, religions or cultures share eerie similarities, like they're long-lost brothers. Mind you, this was during a period where communication takes years to get to its intended recipient. Unfortunately, we can't do much but wait, as only time would tell if it's all true or if it's just a good story. What do you think then? Is Moo just a myth created by Churchward, or is it a forgotten part of our history? And if you liked this video, then make sure to check out this one about the immortal man who never died and is alive even today.